So if you've been watching me with the Ghia that's behind me here, you remember I pulled the motor out of it. So we did a little work with that. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the body off. So in order to do so, the reason why we're doing that is because the floor is rotting out. And that's sunlight that you see down there. That's my foot. So what we gotta do is we gotta empty the car out. The interior has been all removed. The first thing you want to do is you want to remove the interior and anything that attaches the pan to the body. And inside of the 73 Ghia, seat belts attach the pan up to the body. So I'll have to take the minimum of the bottom bolts out. We're also going to have to take out the heater controls that are down here. There's a wire that's inside of here that's activated by this little doodad right here. That lever actuates both of them on both sides. These will have to be detached. And once those are out, you want to pull the shifter off, so that way when we lift the body it'll get clearance. And we got to start removing some bolts. There's two body bolts, these two right here, 1, 2, on each side, 2 more over there. And in the front, we've got to remove the gas tank, which is 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts, 1 wire that goes to the fuel tank sender, the 2 fill hoses over here, and a couple little vacuum lines that run to the charcoal canister evaporation system. So that'll all have to come out, and then underneath the tank we'll show you what's under there next. Well, we've got the gas tank out, what I talked about. I spilled some gas all over the place. I made sure to keep my fire extinguisher out just in case I had a little disaster. Nonetheless, next thing that needs to be pulled out is the steering coupler. I believe you only have to remove 2 bolts from the steering shaft, and this shaft should pull out. In addition, I also have to remove the brake master cylinder reserve, which is connected to those 2 lines which go down to there. I already wiggled one of them around and had the fluid piss out all over the place, and that's what you're looking at there. So I need to pull those lines off and drain them into something, and I also need to pull off the brake light switch wires, which is 1 and 2 right here. So I got to get those out of there, and then at that point I should be okay. Next, we need to remove the 2 body bolts that were underneath the gas tank that holds the body to the top of the axle beam. So those little suckers are what's coming out next. Always put all of your bolts that you remove for any automotive or motorcycle restoration into a jar. Label them. This says body, of course. You see the body bolts are in there. And what I also did is I put the nuts on each bolt so that the bolts don't get lost. And then I labeled them accordingly, and I put them to where they belong in the garage someplace where they're not going to get lost. Alright, those 2 are out, and they are in my bolt can. It seems that the impact gun is probably the best thing to use for these guys, because usually they're pretty rusted and they're pretty tough to remove. And if you use a breaker bar or a ratchet or something, you kind of torque them and cause them to break. Whereas the impact gun has a tendency to hammer them loose, a little bit at a time. So I think you're much less likely to have a broken bolt if you try to use your impact gun to remove these suckers. You can hear my compressor running in the background. It's refilling after I removed a bunch of bolts. I got the 2 out on the front on the axle beam, and I also removed these 2 and those 2. And then I started attacking the floor pans underneath. And let me show you the location of the bolts that are under here. You see them all the way down both sides. And I got a couple of them already out. Giving the compressor a minute to refill itself. But all those bolts have to come out next. And then there's 4 more way up front on the end of the floor pans, which I will show to you. And lastly, there's 2 that are up near the rear shocks, towards the top of the shock towers. And you got to pull the wheels off to get to those. And we're going to get to those last. Well, getting under here and looking around, it looks like the frame head's not in too bad a shape at all. just some surface rust. It was the driver's side pan, you can see right here, that's completely blown out. That milk crate is inside the car. We're outside of the car right now, so just to give you a little understanding as to what we see. So anyway, those two bolts that you see right in front of us there is the last two that's got to come out on this side. And once they come out, then we'll switch over to the other side and work our way alongside the car. There's those front two bolts that we talked about that have to come out. And then right alongside in here, these guys, which are all through that channel. And then they'll all go down the side of the car and get all those out as well. I suspect the passenger side won't be as bad of a problem as the driver's side was. As you can see, that driver's side floor is just caving in. Passenger floor is really not in too bad a shape. But if we're going to take it apart, we're going to replace both sides in it, because that's just what you do. And this car will be like new. The last two bolts are behind the rear wheel, and there's one on each side. So get your rear wheel off, and right at the top of the shock tower you'll see the body attaches to it. And at that location is a bolt on each side, one on each side. Get those two bolts out, and that should be enough to get the body off the pan.